this hangout on there is live. And yeah. So like I have been, spending a couple hours each day bootstrapping. Maybe bootstrapping isn't the right term, but basically creating the infrastructure for this mobile application called Nikeza Mobile. And it basically is a port of the Nikeza.io web application, which is pretty much a prototype, proof of concept. And I've just been on this campaign to pursue mastery of functional programming, which, regardless of if it's not attainable or not, I don't think there's anything wrong with striving for it, right? And the other part is to just practice out loud so that certain things will set in, I think, better versus me quietly, silently programming. So just trying to be transparent. And again, as I think out loud and as I record this, one is recording these videos of me just practicing. It kind of motivates me to at least commit to like 45 minutes to an hour of concentration and rationalization of what I'm building and the decisions of how to build it. It forces me to think out loud the different options as well as the consequences of those particular options. And yeah, I kind of like this, man. It's trying to develop a habit of doing this every day. And I guess I could share my screen. I'll share my screen. Come here. Yeah. I'll share my screen. And you can present to everybody on me. Yes. So far, I have 3 bounded contexts: portfolio, profile, and subscriptions. Okay. All of this is reminiscent of, hey, Twitter. All of this is reminiscent of this Nikeza.io. That's pretty much a prototype that I built in which it scrapes the internet based on people's content that they put out there. So the different platforms that people put out there, or the different platforms that people produce content on, Nikeza will periodically check for new content and update its website to display it. So, for example, Nikeza just discovered that Dave Rail has episode 301 with Marco Pivetta, which is titled "Worth Doing." And also, there appears to be a new .NET Rocks episode from Richard Campbell called Vision, AI, and More with Tim Huckabee. And yesterday, it found on YouTube my video for building the profile editor ViewModel unit test. And then the other one was building profile editor ViewModel. So, yeah, this is what I'm porting, this web app. And you can go to people's profile and you see their portfolio of their Stack Overflow answers, their articles, whether it's on WordPress or Medium.com, their videos that are on YouTube, their podcasts. I've been a guest on several podcast shows. Yeah, followers that you can subscribe or unsubscribe to. Yeah, so this is what I've been porting. I wrote this in Elm. I learned Elm as I was building this web application. I still don't like web, but I like what I accomplished. You could do a search like Scott Dog, like that, Scott Blush. Yeah. So Anyway, these are the bounded contexts that represent the domain of Nikeza, which is a portfolio, profile, and subscriptions. And I have pretty much created view models for registration, for the profile editor, which are basically related to the profile bounded context, hence profile.registration, profile.profile editor, or maybe it could just be called profile.editor. Subscriptions, did I do subscriptions yet? I don't think I did. Well, yeah, subscriptions. I built a couple of view models that are geared towards subscriptions yesterday. For example, recent links from providers. I wrote that view model yesterday. And then there's also your subscriptions view model, which shows all your providers that you're subscribed to. I also wrote that view model yesterday. What I plan on writing today is a view model to basically reflect a provider's portfolio. So as I attempted to share that this can be a provider's portfolio, which is categorized as, oh, what just happened? Which is categorized as answers, articles, podcasts, and videos. These podcasts are right here. And these are all the links. So, and then later I need to actually start creating the actual views, which means that I'm going to have to probably, even though it's okay with this Nikeza mobile portable class library, it's complaining about this Android project. So I'm more than likely going to have to. I'll probably just destroy both these projects, maybe in another video, and re-add a Xamarin, the Xamarin projects here, and then connect them to these different projects down here, in addition to App Logic and UI Logic. But until then, my view models are in UI Logic, and I'm not sure if it's worth me creating a folder. Maybe. Let's say view models. Maybe that might be useful. IDK. One or more files will be moved to this operation may take a long time. It didn't take a long time. So have my view models folder in here. Everything else is pretty much support, such as I have a publisher module of registration.types and adapter. Registration.types, what are you? Do you really need to be in UI logic? And it probably doesn't. This right here. First, let me see. I can probably throw that inside the same file. Let me first try to build my solution. I don't really see a need for this registration.types. If I attempt to, let me see if the form is really being used. It is being used. Where is it being used at? Control \E will display the errors, and it's being used in this adapter. Okay. So it's being used in the adapter. Is it being used anywhere else? It's being used in this registration view model. Okay. Which we have a form that, okay. So what I plan on doing is yeah, that's why it's in its own file, is because this adapter relies on it. If I move this, and the view model relies on the adapter. So the view model has a dependency on the adapter. The adapter has a dependency on this UI form. Okay. So that's why this registration dot types is in a separate file. I just feel like it it's all by itself and it's just so minuscule, it's so small that I really want to put this somewhere else. So this adapter, I'm thinking about throwing this registration types in this adapter file, and we just rename the yeah, because this registration types is only the module name. So what I'm saying I'm considering doing is I take this form and I throw it in here. So I'm going to say something like that. And if I do that, then that means that I can probably get rid of this. And if I get rid of that, things may be happy. Let me see. Or things happy if I build and it says, oh, I don't know what that is. No problem. You don't need to know what that is. That. Try to build again. This is me attempting to exercise the Boy Scout rule, and everything's happy. Okay. Everything's happy. Yes. Come here. And we can get rid of this registration.types. Boy Scout rule. Yes. All right. So everything's happy. It's one less file I have to worry about. Keep things together that tend to change together. Pull things apart that tends to change for different reasons. Stings is actually code. So keep code together that tends to change together. Pull code apart that tends to change for different reasons. Robert C. Martin. Okay. So now that we have that, what I wanted to do is want to add a file called within my UI logic, add a new file called portfolio view model. I think we prefix it with portal dot portfolio view model, something like that. And we can move this into our view models. And we can follow the namespace conventions that we have here, which we say namespace. We do something like this, portal dot portfolio. And then we over here we say type view model like that equals. Then you say member x dot foo, and everything should be happy. Doesn't like this view model. A type definition requires one or more members for declarations. What are you talking about? say, do I say equal or just, okay, so something like that. And it says member doesn't recognize. Why don't you like member? Oh, member.foo equals something like that. Are you happy with that? Or are you still going to comply? It still says unexpected member. I feel like I need to do that. Okay, okay. So everything builds. And we're not really going to have a foo in here, but this is portal.portfolio.viewModel, right? So in the portfolio, you're going to have, I have reason to believe that we're going to inject a provider, okay? Provider, something like that. This provider comes from either, I think it comes from the Keza dot data transfer maybe. And so that gets injected into our view model. Okay. What else? Well, I know for a fact that not only do we inject the provider into our view model, but we also need to provide the implementation, or we need to inject the implementation, or well, it's an implementation. Popular term is we need to inject the dependency, right, of how we query that portfolio. So I'm just going to have this, call this portfolio function, and that's going to be of portfolio like that. And I believe I defined this portfolio function already. No? If I do control dot, then it's still not being recognized. Try get portfolio. That's what it is right here. But yeah, so we can name this to portfolio function like that. And do that. That's in our Nikeza.mobile portfolio. Something like that. And we import yet another module, something like that. And so we now have our view model that has parameters within its constructor for a provider and a portfolio function, right? This portfolio function is either going to point to the function used to actually do web requests, or it may be a mock get portfolio function. That's why this is here. This member x.foo should really be loading a portfolio. So we say member x.load. That .load is going to basically, I might as well just do copy paste, because that load more likely will look very similar to this load over here for our members, our portal.members, in which it loads in members. And the way that the solution is architected is any type of uh, non-pure logic, meaning any logic that has side effects, they hence queries or commands that get executed. The result of that are domain events, and then those domain events can be pattern matched and the data can be extracted from them. And so that said, we follow maybe the same pattern where we can do, in this case, we say this is, where did get members come from? That's up here, right? So we can say up here, get portfolio. Something like that. And get portfolio is going to take a provider ID. Provider dot, how does this work? Provider dot profile dot ID, which means that this view model, maybe it doesn't take a provider, maybe it just takes a provider ID that we do here. Okay. And so we take that provider ID and we say get portfolio. And then there's probably an event called get portfolio succeeded, maybe. And that's not reflected in here yet, which I'm surprised. And it is in here. So we have this Nikeza mobile portfolio events that we need to import. So we open that and say that this Nikeza common can be over here. Okay. State of transfer is not needed. And if we do it that way, then it would look something like this. Hold up. Now this get portfolio succeeded. Let's get portfolio function. It returns a query event list. Unless I spelled something wrong, which does succeeded have two C's in it? Oh, how you spell succeeded? Suck. I think succeeded has two C's. It does have two C's in it. So the succeeded spelled wrong, which may be the reason why it's not being discovered in our view model that we're creating right now. And now it's recognized. And so then we have the succeeded is going to return a provider. Okay. And from there we say provider going to, let me see, we may not need to do anything else here. Get rid of this because this is pattern matching on the list. But we do want that provider though. Something like that. And portfolio succeeded of provider. Okay. And we probably want to not sure how I want to do this. Once we have a provider, then what? Well, we probably, because this view model is an instance or an object, then we want to probably have a member variable called provider. So we say provider equals, how do you want to do this? Provider equals, let's say none, but with portfolio, I mean, this isn't a web application, so like you kind of always want to have a provider, right? You're not putting in a URL and during routing based on that URL, that provider may not exist. This is a mobile app, and so you're constrained to click on one of the members that is displayed. And when you click on it, the navigation takes place based on that member's ID. And that should just work. So with that said, provider isn't going to be none, but this is representing a constructor, this line right here. And so a constructor probably shouldn't throw any exceptions. And if you do IO in here, then you have the potential of exceptions, which is why we're not doing this get portfolio at the constructor scope. So provider should not be an option of some or none, if anything, but we're forced to initialize a provider if we go this route. So if we go this route, then I think we just need to basically provide some type of blank provider, and then we just mutate that initial provider with a provider that resulted from our load operation. Okay, so what I mean is this is going to be we could call this uninitialized provider, something like that, which we would have to define. And this would be mutable, right? So we say mutable like this. Now, I'm almost positive that in my test API, I should have some provider right here. So, and actually all this right here, question is, this test API is, do I really want, I don't think my UI logic should reference the test API. But I do have some common types in here that are already initialized that this uninitialized provider should point to. Or, these are two different domains. So with that said, because they're two different domains, I think that I should keep these separated. So what I'm saying is, if I have something like this, and I call this uninitialized, like this right here, and now what? Cannot contain values. Consider using a module to hold. Okay. Module foo equals, and then bring that stuff up here. Okay. And this uninitialized open foo. Yeah, so something like that is what we want. And we probably can, we'll call this uninitialized provider, fine. And then we'll use the same naming convention for portfolio, uninitialized portfolio, and we say uninitialized profile. And we update that, and we update this over here, and everything should be happy. Go provider right here. Okay, so that's happy. This foo we can rename to uninitialized, maybe something like that. And I kind of want to just uninitialized. Should this really live in my view model? Which may be okay, or should it live in my domain? These, I think this should be in our common library. So when I say our Nikkei's a common, I mean, if I scroll up, this is Nikkei's a common right here. Common is right here. And I have a whole bunch of types. And what I'm saying is I should probably have this in here. Okay. If I do that, then that will remove the need for me to have this here. And I could just say open Nikkei's.common, which is already up there. Save that. Save that. Try to build. And uninitialized provider is recognized. This get portfolio succeeded doesn't know what that is because this get portfolio function, the services expression was expected to have a query event list, but here has a query event. Okay. And so what that is saying is do this. and then do something like this. Are you still complaining? Well, we can't use function here. Okay. Because function is pattern matching. You can't, well, you can pattern match on a list. So this good for portfolio function is returning a list. So you should be able to do the expression was expected to have type query event, but here it has a list. Okay. Well, this returns a list of query events. And so I'm pattern matching on a list in which I say the head and the head. How would you do this? If I do it this way, the head. Let me look at it a different type of way. Skip portfolio is going to return a list of events. Okay. With the events, we want to basically, you could say events dot, you could say list dot contains, and then you could say it portfolio succeeded, something like that. But this load operation is actually doing the side effect. So I still feel like we need to do a pattern match of the list. If we do that, then it should be something like this. It should be like function, okay? And we should have like, let's imagine we had head, and then we had tail like this. And let's imagine that we had everything else like this. The compiler appears to be happy so far if we have this load operation constructed like this, right? Well, then we could rewrite this to be here. Be something like this. Okay. And that would be okay too. And then I could say something like this. Okay. And the compiler is still okay with that as well. So then after we have that, then one could surmise that we can then, instead of saying get portfolio and then head and tail, we should be able to say the head is, how would you do this? This would be get portfolio succeeded, which you have your provider, and then you have We don't care about anything else. So this right here would be tail. Tail could be an empty list, which this makes sense to me. And so then we have I thought we have a Nikeza.mobile.publisher. Open Nikeza.mobile. Or it's Nikeza. Well, yeah, Nikeza. Where's this publisher at? That's under AppLogic? No. This publisher is Nikeza Mobile UI Logic.publisher, which means that if it's not being recognized, we have to make sure that this portfolio is in the correct file order. So we bring it over here. So now we should be able to say, where am I at? Should be able to say Nikeza.mobile.UI logic.publisher publish, and that would publish. It's going to take an event occurred, and it's going to take a list of events. So theoretically, we should be able to import this like here. To open something like that. And we need to add a new member called, well, how do we do this? Say member x.events occurred. I can't spell occurred. Equals, and then events occurred dot trigger, something like that. The event occurred is not defined, so we can define the event occurred up here. Say let event occurred equal events and take a wildcard. We pass that right there. Okay. How do you spell trigger? Like that. And so then we could say publish, and we say events occurred like that. And it would probably want the, if we do that, then we can theoretically should be able to, how does this work? If we do that, then we should be able to do something like this. To do a load, we take our provider ID and we get the portfolio and we publish the event occurred. This trigger suspected to have type query event. What is this trigger supposed to do? This trigger is supposed to event that trigger like that. Okay. Our events goes away up here. The compiler looks like it's happy. It's not done building yet. The compiler is happy. All right. So our portal.portfolio.viewModel, this provider hasn't yet been used yet. So what do we do with that? Well, that's probably what we were supposed to do, is we were supposed to take that provider from Get Portfolio. So we were supposed to do something like, oh, come here. Supposed to take the provider like this and basically mutate it like that. So Get Portfolio succeeded and it has a provider attached to it. We take the provider attached to it and we assign it as the new value of our provider, or we mutate the provider with a new value that's attached to this Get Portfolio succeeded. Okay. And that looks fine, which means that we don't really have a need for this event occurred member for this. We don't have a need for this right now. Would we have a need for event occurred for publishing events later? In a portfolio, you can subscribe and unsubscribe. Those are domain events. So I would say, yeah, this could probably still stay here. This event occurred. This up here. Then, okay. Now what? Well, something is telling me that this is the logic that it's supposed to have, but I don't think I used that type of logic earlier. I think, over here, this get subscription succeeded probably can look like this, or like this. That's probably what we want even over here too. We don't care about the tail because we're not going to use the tail, so we just provide a wildcard like that. And so that's for subscriptions. Members is probably going to have the same thing, something like that. And apparently I have this all spaced out, which looks cleaner. So we have that right there. Okay. Now what? Well, my OCD says that this right here should be lined up like that, or like this. Sure if I did it the same way. No, over here I didn't do it like that. But I will, because I think it just looks better. Okay. And we do the same thing with members over here. I think it just looks better. We align that. Okay. Okay. Now what? Well, we go back to our portal.portfolio view model and we just provided the implementation for load. There's going to be some other operations in here. Those operations are going to be commands on the portfolio for, in this case, you can subscribe and unsubscribe. So X dot, how does this work? This will be a, how will this work? Before I do that, there will be a let's we call it follow. Let follow. Hold up. How we do this? Let follow equal delegate command, which is going to take a function and have some side effect, and there's going to be a I'll just say true for right now. It's going to be another function that used to, well, if you follow someone, you need to basically ask if they're already being followed, right? Already following. And is already following, something like that. And that is actually going to be, how's that going to work? That is already following, may rely on IO. I think it is going to rely on IO, which means that let's is already following equal, and right now we just say false, or we could say true, which will force us to recognize that, which will disable the UI in the XAML, because this represents can execute the second argument of the second parameter of this delegate command. Okay. And we do the same thing over here, where we say unsubscribe. Reminds me, I have an interview today. Unsubscribe, and to unsubscribe, you can unsubscribe if you're not already following. No. If you're already following, then you can unsubscribe. You can follow if you're not already following, which I would like to say, oh no, something like this. So if you're not already following, then you can follow. Else, you can unsubscribe if you're already following. Something like that. Okay. Everything still builds. And everything still builds. Next, I can say that this is probably where I add my member. I say member x dot follow. And do I want to say follow command? Maybe, I don't know. X dot follow command. Oh yeah. These delegate commands, they need to expose a I command. Something like that. Okay. So then this member x.follow command, that will basically bind to follow. And this member x dot unsubscribe command, that will bind to unsubscribe, like that. Okay. Question is, do we really need to call this command? Maybe not. Maybe not. Something like that. Okay. Everything still builds. So in our portfolio, we have a follow command, we have an unsubscribe command. I have a function called isAlreadyFollowing up here. By default, I just say true because I don't feel like working on the logic for that yet. Ultimately, that logic is going to work on the list of if we have a provider, which we have to have a provider because the load is going to be the first operation that gets called. One would think once a load operation gets called, then over here, if the get portfolio operation does not succeed, then we probably want to call a publish, and we say the other events, which we can say publish other events, publish, and then we can say events occurred, something like that. All right. Now what? Well, I said follow, said unsubscribe, is already following. Basically, is going to take, is already following is going to take the provider. Provider is going to have a subscriptions right here, which is a list, string list. That string list is going to represent IDs. And it's probably going to say, is already following, is going to need a provider ID. So then you say provider dot subscriptions list dot contains provider ID, like that. And which means that this right here, this will actually be, this will introduce a view provider. We're in the portfolio. That's this right here, this provider ID. So then we could say provider ID. Can we do a duck? How do you do this? Down here, I could say let get ID provider ID. I don't even have to do that. I say get ID equals, and then I basically say here provider ID. How does this work? What do I get to? You can always just do a match. You could say provider ID function. And then from there, you can say provider ID. You can just do something like that. ID. There needs to be a better way of doing this. Well, up here you could do. Yeah, here you should be able to do something like this. You should be able to say, you have to wrap it in parentheses, but you can say provider ID like that, but it's not liking that. Why aren't you liking this? I should be able to say this. And you're not going to let me do this? All right, bye. So we have this get ID is already following, and I could say get ID, provider ID. This get ID, hold up. Yeah, that should work. Is already following, takes a string and returns a bool. It says the value is not a function, cannot be implied. Get ID is taking that should work. If it doesn't, then I can maybe do. Okay, I got it. Something like that. Is already following. and we say get ID, that. Portfolio provider ID, we say get ID, we say provider ID function, provider ID is already following provider.subscriptions list contains provider ID. Yeah, that should be it right there. Now what? Oh, so we load. If the Git portfolio succeeded, that we're loading works, then we have a provider that's initialized, else we publish an event, which will probably result in a navigation being triggered, showing an error page. In addition to that, we have a follow command, we have an unsubscribe command, okay? And is there anything else on the portfolio? Portfolio is going to have, it's going to have links. Well, it's going to have different categories that the links are going to be under. And so what I mean by that is we're going to have a member x dot articles, and that will be, say, with, how does this work? Get, you say, how does this work? Get is actually going to equal articles, which we have to find. Uh-oh. So we can define that maybe up here. We can say let articles equal boom. And this is going to be mutable, right? Mutable. And one is articles, one is videos, one is answers, hence Stack Overflow, and one is podcasts. Okay. So we have that in here. Our member.articles, we have set, we say and set, and then we have our value in here, and we say, how does this work? We say equal, how does this work? Articles, it's mutated by the value that we have. And so we do that right there. And we just do copy paste inheritance for the other properties of this view model. So if that was articles, this would be videos. And we just, videos like that. And answers like that, right? And we go over here, come here. And we say answers like that, okay? And we go over here, and I think the last one is podcast, right? And so we go over here and we say podcast like that, right? And then over here, we do something like this, and we say podcast like that, right? And so that is our portfolio. Our portfolio has the commands follow and unsubscribe. It also has the properties, articles, videos, answers, and podcasts that are our lists. And ultimately, these articles are links. I'm not sure if I need to put that there at this point. I'm not going to put it there at this point, but that's what they're going to be. And so, which pretty much means that we're going to load the provider, and when we load the provider, this load operation is also going to load the articles, the videos, the answers, and the podcasts of that provider. And so that's something that I still need to do down here. So when this Git portfolio succeeds, this provider is already going to have those links. The provider is already going to have a provider dot, I think, articles, provider dot videos, all that stuff. So the question is, do I have just a member dot provider, and or do I maintain this right here? If in my XAML, I can say I can have a list view, not list view, but I can have, well, I can basically construct, whether it's a list view or just arbitrary links that are in the list. I can have a list of links, and within the XAML, yeah, the list of links would be a list view, right? And I can basically mess around with the presentation of it so that it just looks like a list of links. And there I would set the items control to a provider dot articles. So I'm thinking I don't need this up here. The data is already contained within my provider. It won't be that difficult for me to re-add this if I need to. What I do need to have is I need to have a provider though. So we have this member x dot provider, and that's what we need to bind to, equals provider, something like that. Okay. That's pretty much it for right now. So everything still builds. I still got to write an automated test for this for the load operation. And I need to do an automated test for the follow command and the unsubscribe command. So that's on my to-do list. But this looks like the gist of it. Yeah. Now, this, I wonder if this could be cleaned up a little bit. If I do that, That looks fine. Everything else looks straight for the most part. Provider ID, that's already in here. That's not needed. This get ID is actually taking, I don't understand why I have to, oh, why is this value is not a function that cannot be applied, is already following. Is already following. Contains get ID. No, I had everything building, and now I'm messing everything up. This value is not a function; it cannot be applied. Get ID. It takes this provider ID up here. Why doesn't this value is not a function? All right, let me just return everything back because everything worked before. And I'm just going to check everything, yeah. And edit portfolio view model. Commit all and push. And that's it. That's the end of this video. Yep. Peace. So stop broadcast.